Hey peeps! So I'm finally giving an update almost 3 years after I got this little Dracena Marginata, and it seems to have been one of my most popular videos, and I've had quite a few questions asked about the care and tips in general about it, so I thought, well, time to update, time to give a bit more information after I've learned how to deal and care with this plant for all this time, and I'm no longer a noob and clueless about it. And as you can see, it's doing rather well. Now, the reason why I haven't updated sooner is because these plants are incredibly slow growers, so there isn't really much you can say about them on regular updates. So here we go. Now, this is the original one that I got in my first and only video about this plant, and I'll link it below so you guys can see what it looked like when I first got it 3 years ago. But this plant here, let's have a look in case you can't be bothered to have a look or don't want to. When I got it, it was about up to here, so it was quite short, and in the 3 years that I've had it, it's grown that much. So up until here, and plus the leaves that are on the top there, so which proves my point that it is a very slow growing plant, but my gosh, is it a joy to have. It's so undemanding and so beautiful, and it doesn't take up a lot of space unless you have a much bigger one, which I don't. I have a much smaller one, and when I first bought it, it was in a very small nursery pot, and this is just the one that I put it into, which I did say I would do a repot video with, but what can I say, I got carried away off camera. My bad, I'm sorry guys. So a little bit about the care for these, because a lot of people seem to have some questions and seem to be struggling with this. So what I've done with mine in the 3 years that I've had it is, the first thing I did was get it out of its little plastic pot and put it into some chunky, well-draining soil. You can see here I've got my Ceramis pellets, my cactus and succulent mix, and I've also put some sand in there as well, so it drains very well, coupled with a terracotta pot which is breathable. So this thing doesn't like to sit too wet for too long, because, you know, obviously that's going to rot it, and you don't want that. I give it water roughly about once a week, maybe a week and a half, but generally my indication for when it does really need the water is when these leaves don't look quite as perky and they start to droop a little bit. And once those leaves start to droop, it's time for a drink. So just make sure that you give it enough water so it takes in on the soil, and a little bit comes back out on the tray here, and then you just let it completely dry out, and, you know, wait a week and a half or maybe even 2 weeks, depending on how long it takes for these leaves to start drooping, and then just give it another drink again. I don't really fertilise it. I just generally give it fertiliser when I remember, in the spring and summer months, maybe about 2-3 times in the year. I'm really slack with fertilising, but if you want to do it a little bit more frequently than that, I guess you can do once a month, but that's not personally what I do, so I'll leave that down to your discretion. For me, I've found less is more. So as long as you give it the water, you give it some light, and you don't let it dehydrate or drown it, you're good. You're good. It's that easy, guys. Now, obviously, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for plants, because it does depend on the environment it's in and how hot or how cold it is. Obviously, if it's warmer, you might need to water it a bit more. If it's colder, you might need to water it a little bit less. So, rule of thumb is, if you don't want to wait for it to start drooping, which, to be honest, I recommend you do, because, as I said, less is more. But if you really want to check, then all you need to do, if you don't want to be swish and buy a moisture meter, is just stick your finger in And I can feel straight away to the second knuckle, roundabout, that it is completely dry. And you can see here that the soil is just very powdery and there's not any moisture in there at all. So just for demonstration purposes, even though the leaves aren't drooping yet, but I think they should start drooping in the next couple of days, I'll give it some water and you guys can see how I water it and how much I give it. Alrighty, so with my handy dandy watering can, you'll see here, I will just fill it and let the water go in so it kind of takes over the whole top, and you can see how fast that water drains. If the camera focuses, it just gets slurped right up and drains right through. And you can see at the bottom there that it has flowed straight through. So that's all you do to water it, and as long as you don't do that too much, you won't get a mushy mess. So there you go, guys. That's, oh wait, I didn't cover light. The light, now I think I could give it a little bit more, but yeah, I keep it in bright indirect sunlight. So usually he sits up there, and there's my skylight there. So it does get some bright indirect sunlight. I think it can take maybe a little bit more than that, because as you can see, the stems are quite, well, not quite as thick as they were when I first got it, so it did get a little bit spindly looking. So I think I can afford to maybe give it just that little bit more light, but not blast in your face direct sunlight, because I think that's not so good. These ones generally do well in medium to low light. I mean, low light you'll get really spindly, thin, twiggy looking branches, which I personally don't like the look of. But if you want it to be a bit more bushier and substantial, then yeah, you can put it in a similar situation. Again, this is a southeast exposure, and the sun does come all the way across the top there and over the house there, so it gets a few hours of very bright sunlight coupled with the big window at the back there. But if I wanted to put it in, say, an eastern window or a western window, I think it would probably fare a little bit better with light conditions, but I'm happy with how it's doing at the moment. So yeah, guys, that's my Dracena Marginata. That's how I care for it. It really is that simple. And if you've got any more questions that I didn't cover in this video, please feel free to comment below and ask them. But on that note, I think I've waffled on long enough, and we'll wrap the video up there. So thanks for watching, guys. As always, it's much appreciated, much love, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.